Stop right there. If you've been studying English for years, maybe you understand every movie, maybe you ace every grammar test. But when a native speaker asks you a simple question, your mind goes blank and you freeze up. I know exactly why. I know what you've been told your entire learning journey. You've been told that to speak English fluently, you need a bigger vocabulary. You need to memorize more phrasal verbs. You need to finally master the passive voice. And that is the lie. The painful truth is, you could have a 20,000 word vocabulary and still be unable to hold a simple, spontaneous conversation. You could have perfect grammar scores and still sound like a robot. Why? Because fluency isn't about what you know, it's about how you use it. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to expose this lie, show you the 3 simple, powerful habits that native speakers use every day, and give you a free, simple plan to finally break through your fluency plateau. Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into the solution, we have to clearly define the problem. I call this the knowledge gap. You've spent all your energy building your passive knowledge. That's the English you can read, the English you can listen to, the English you understand when it's given to you. You know that word, cringe, when you see it in a text. You know the word, ubiquitous. But try to use ubiquitous naturally in a conversation about your weekend, it's impossible. Your brain has been trained to be a dictionary, not a speaker. Think of it like this. Your passive knowledge is a huge library full of amazing books, but your active speaking ability is a tiny old card with only 5 books on it. When a native speaker asks you a question, your brain rushes to the massive library, gets overwhelmed by all the choices, and the card comes back empty. You can't retrieve the words fast enough. This gap, the one between knowing a word and using a word, is what keeps you stuck in that frustrating loop of silence. You don't need a bigger library. You need a faster card. You need to take the top 1,000 most used words and phrases and move them from your passive knowledge to your active speaking system. And that brings us to the biggest lie. Fluency requires massive vocabulary. False. Fluency requires instant retrieval of a small, core vocabulary. Action point. Hit that like button if you have ever frozen up in a conversation, even though you knew the answer. Let's get this video out to everyone who feels this way. Let's look at the numbers. Research shows that the top 1,000 most frequent English words account for about 86% of all spoken English. Think about that. 86% of the conversations you have, from buying groceries to talking about the weather, are powered by just those 1,000 words. Let's look at the numbers. Research shows that the top 1,000 most frequent English words account for about 80% of all spoken English. Think about that. 80% of the conversations you have, from buying groceries to talking about the weather, are powered by just those 1,000 words. If you can use those 1,000 words instantaneously, without thinking, you are 80% fluent. But what do most English courses focus on? They focus on the other 21%, the low-frequency, complex, beautiful words that are fun to learn, but slow down your speech. When a native speaker talks, they don't hunt for the perfect, exotic synonym. They use simple, high-frequency words and chain them together using natural connectors. For example, a non-fluent speaker might say, I am going to investigate the situation with my manager to ascertain a resolution. A fluent speaker using core vocabulary says, I'm going to check in with my boss to figure out what we should do next. The second sentence is clearer, faster, and uses 100% high-frequency words and phrasal verbs. That speed, that instant retrieval, is what we are training today. We are going to focus on active recall and automaticity. We are making the 1,000 most important words into muscle memory. Ready to start training? Here are the 3 habits that switch your English from a passive library to an active, fast-speaking system. Habit number 1 is the 3-second response drill. This is the most important step for developing automaticity. The reason you freeze is because your brain gives you too much time to think. It tries to translate. It tries to find the most perfect grammar construction. We need to force your brain to grab the good enough word and say it now. The rule: when you hear a question or a prompt, you have exactly 3 seconds to say the beginning of your answer or the whole answer out loud. Not in your head. Out loud. Let's practice this right now together. I'm going to ask you a question. You have 3 seconds to start speaking. Don't worry about being perfect. Just open your mouth and make a noise. Time's up. Did you say something like, I had coffee and toast, or I skipped breakfast today? Excellent, you started speaking. If you said nothing, your brain is still in the translation library mode. We have to drag it out. Did you say, I would travel to Japan, or I haven't thought about it? The key here is the immediate start. Your brain should prioritize speed over perfection. Why this works? The 3-second rule cuts off the internal translator. It forces your brain to use the words that are already on the top shelf of your active speaking system. We are literally training a new habit loop. How to implement it? Use a mirror. Ask yourself 10 simple questions. What is your biggest fear? Describe your favorite meal. And use a stopwatch. The pre-answer trick. If you truly cannot formulate the answer in 3 seconds, use a filler phrase instantly. The second habit addresses the other big lie. You must learn vocabulary word by word. False. Native speakers do not speak using single words. They speak in chunks. Think about the word regret. If you learn that word by itself, it's just a floating piece of data. When you need it, you have to remember the definition, the verb tense, and the prepositions that go with it. Too slow. A fluent speaker doesn't use regret. They use the chunks associated with regret. I don't regret doing that. I have no regrets. It's a regrettable mistake. When you learn these chunks, these groups of 3 to 5 words that always go together, you are bypassing the grammar stage entirely. You are teaching your brain to retrieve a complete sentence segment. This is the contextual chunking method. How to implement it? Identify 10 power verbs. Choose the most common boring verbs. Go, get, make, do, take, come, see, give, find, tell. Map 5. Chunks. For each of those verbs, you must find and memorize 5 common chunks that use it. Do not memorize the single word. Once you have these chunks, you are not learning 10 words. You are learning 50 sentence fragments that are instantly useful. This is your new focus. Stop memorizing the dictionary. Start stealing the most useful phrases that native speakers actually say. Homework. I want you to pick the verb come right now. In your notes, write down 5 ways you have heard come used in a natural, common chunk. If you can't think of 5, you know exactly what you need to focus on next. This habit is about efficiency. It's about getting the absolute biggest return on your study time. The third habit is the one that transforms correct English into confident, flowing English. I call this the opinion loop. Most English practice is focused on recounting facts. Where did you go? What did you see? But native speakers rarely just give facts. They give facts and an opinion. Non-fluent. I went to the new restaurant. It was open. Fluent. I went to the new restaurant. It was actually really good. I was so surprised. The opinion, the emotional reaction, is what creates flow and keeps the conversation going. It also allows you to use more interesting vocabulary, like adverbs and intensifiers, e.g., really, totally, absolutely. The opinion loop rule. Practice talking about anything for 60 seconds and ensure 50% of what you say is your personal, subjective opinion about the topic. Let's try a difficult one. Topic: socks. Okay, socks. I have to say, I think socks are completely underrated. Most people don't think about them, but I personally believe that a good pair of socks can totally change your day. They are so important for comfort, especially if you have to stand all day. My true opinion is that spending money on a high-quality pair is absolutely worth it.